So we're now experiencing a classic restriction of credit. You might have heard that.
Yep.
We're seeing programs out there that were once available are becoming more and more constricted.
Hello everyone, welcome to Real Value with Tyler Blott. Today I have with me Fred Duff. He's a data analyst and mortgage loan broker who I've known for a number of years. He is one of the smartest individuals that I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. And because of that, I think it would be really valuable for you to kind of hear his perspective, not just on mortgages, but really on what's going on in the economy at large and how that affects your wealth and your finances. So Fred, thanks for joining me today. Really, just real quick, kind of give us the background of what it is you do and what drove you to be a data scientist.
So I've been in the mortgage business, I guess, for over 28 years. During 17 to 18 years of that time, I bought and sold mortgage-backed securities across the United States, worked on the wholesale and correspondent side. I've been a regional sales manager, vice president, branch manager, the whole 9 yards. At some point a couple of years ago, I had decided that mortgage banks, in my opinion, were poorly managed, and I decided to upscale my knowledge and my tools. And so at that point, I went back to school, as you know, and to say the least, and in fact, I'm going back to school now, as you all
at MIT, right?
Yeah, well, so I got my master's degree, I got an MBA with an analytics certification, because at the time there wasn't such a thing as an analytics degree. And then I got 2 postgraduate degrees from the University of Texas, which is known as one of the best in the country. I got it in data science and business analytics, and then artificial intelligence and neural networks.
Okay.
Got a couple of postgraduate degrees in SQL and IBM. I'm a certified IBM data scientist. Recently, like real recently, now I'm enrolled in a 7-month program, which is similar to the previous programs with MIT as a data engineer. So, and why that's the case is because it all plays very closely with high-level mortgage and real estate connectivity.
Yeah. So, I mean, you laid the perfect transition. Let's kind of talk about that from really the macro perspective and then move in.
Sure.
So what are you seeing right now that's happening on a global scale, whether it pertains to interest rates or with money supply, that's affecting mortgages and real estate?
Well, that's a good question. First of all, something before we get any further, Gary Keller, which happens to be, had a strong influence on why I went into data science and data analytics. In 2014, he had a really, I think it was pivotal for me in listening to his speech at Family Reunion,
right,
by the way. So I go really long and deep into Keller, have a value system that's very similar to theirs. But so we, as you know, anybody that's been around and not under a rock, we went through this thing called the pandemic where we did insane things. Now, when you look back on it, you'd say, I would never do that. But we did it. And so we shut down our economy, and the world did as well. And in order to make up that time, that space, we pumped money, M1, not just our country, but other countries as well, to consumers and individuals, or citizens. And we, in that time frame, I believe, and I believe at that time when everyone was focused more on the home and where they were at, and they were not getting their entertainment, and they were realizing their life, it was hyper-focused on the home.
Okay.
They had money, they were hyper-focused on their home, and so there was a shift, if you will, really on, we're still waiting to see if that shift is going to continue, to what degree that trend is going to stay out there. So we had that, and now we're coming out of that, of course. And in fact, I think we're well on our way out of that. And not just here in the United States, but also around the world, we have a lot of money out in the open market, and we're running and trying to get it to work well again.
Yeah.
And so it's causing some challenges, and it's going to continue a little bit.
And let's dive into that a little bit, because one of the things that you mentioned that I think is really important in this conversation is we shut down the economy and then we pumped billions upon billions of dollars, trillions of dollars and other currencies into the market. And yet when we do that, they weren't backed by anything. There was no production, right?
No, we have a fiat currency, as you know.
Yes.
And so I would liken it to, and this is just a humble opinion, and everyone's got their own. But I think I mentioned this to you the other day. It could have been somebody else. If you're riding your bicycle and your chain is too big, okay, and you don't realize it's too big, but it skips a couple of beats and stuff.
Yeah.
Until you tighten that chain, are you able to get it really to work smoothly? So what we're experiencing, we're having jumps in the chain, and you're not able to really get full movement.
Gotcha.
So I think that's a relatively interesting way to look at it.
Yeah.
I think that's what's going on.
So explain what those bumps in the chain are in your view as you look at this from an analytical perspective.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I'm exposed to data all the time, and so I'd have to really study it, and my idea on what studying is probably different than some, but I want to see the numbers. I don't want to hear what other people are saying,
Sure,
et cetera. So but what I see just from an opinion, and take that for what it's worth, is we're seeing rotating issues, and we seem to get that issue, and then we're moving on to another one, and you're talking about supply chain issues. You're just seeing where the economy is starting to pick back up and to get rolling and getting into movement. Okay, and we're going from one problem to the next, and really it's just about getting those things to where we're back running at a normal speed.
Gotcha.
Okay, and I think we've come a long way, really. I do. Okay. But we still have ways to go, and you'll see, like, it can go from baby formula one day to
toilet paper
to
eggs,
to eggs. So you're seeing this dysfunction going on. Right. And so it's not helped by some policies that are coming out, but we'll see how that kind of works out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So now let's take that a little bit more narrow, because obviously your specialty is with mortgages.
Yeah.
So how is this excess of M1 money supply affecting the availability of mortgages and interest rates and really consumer appetite for taking out new loans?
All right, so during the pandemic, we were very, very busy. The demand for mortgages, literally, everybody else is off. I was working, 12 to 15 hours every day. You literally could not service everybody.
Yeah.
It was, we never got a break. I think I got one break during one day, and that's it. So,
what was that, like a 5-minute nap that you got? Or?
It was insane, really. And I don't even want to get into this, but the bifurcations that occurred in the secondary market were literally off the chain incredible.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned that to you sometime in the past. So, classically, when you look at economics and when you're looking at what happens to M1, and another word for M1 is currency, okay? And if you look up the chart I've shown you, and anybody out there, if you look up the Federal Reserve M1 chart, which is currency, so we pump the economy full of this fiat currency, paper dollars. We've got people sitting at home, they've got extra money, and they're focused on their home, so what are they going to do? They're going to go buy a new home.
Yeah, or remodel their home.
If they have the ability, and they did. But classically, when you flood the market with M1, like we did, then you are necessary. It's almost like a drug addict, and now we take that away from the drug addict, which you've got to do. It's absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
You've got to take the pain. So if you don't, then the individual dies or something really bad, and we're no different. And so now we're in the recovery phase, or the hangover, if you will.
Sure.
Okay? And so we're now experiencing a classic restriction of credit. You might have heard that.
Yep.
We're seeing programs out there that were once available are becoming more and more constrictive, like the home style loan, for example. Construction loans are getting a little bit more difficult to obtain. Credit is getting tighter. And that's because what's going on is the credit worthiness of the borrowers and the consumers are not what they were. And
Right.
so it's going to have a ripple effect.
Yeah. Well, on top of that, I mean, the way money is printed, we think of it generically as, oh, well, the federal mint, the Treasury, is going to just print greenbacks. And that's really not the case, right? For all intents and purposes, our money is digital. And when you take out a loan and using fractional reserve banking, what's happening is they're taking dollars that have no real dollars behind them and lending them out, essentially creating money from nothing.
Right. Well, we're on a debt reserve. We're on a debt currency, really. Our currency is driven by debt, I've got my own thoughts on that. But that's really our currency.
Yeah.
When we talk about what our balance sheet is and things like that, mortgage applications are way down. I've seen some numbers as high as over 50%.
Oh, wow.
Some numbers as little as 30% down. But regardless, that's substantial. Interest rates, of course, as you know, have gone up quite a bit.
Yep.
They are moderating right now. We were in the third week right now where interest rates have actually come down, which is good news. Okay. Now we had a pretty nice report that came out yesterday on Consumer Price Index, which was down 0.1%. Overall, I haven't dissected the whole report, but that's certainly helpful. I'm concerned about recent gas prices, however, because that will impact the overall CPI.
Right. Absolutely. So, in the interest of time, let's go ahead and dive into really the meat and potatoes of what that all means, because I think what most people are concerned about is, what's happening in real estate on a national level, and then let's break that down really to the local level and see what's happening for the average consumer.
Right. Well, just briefly on what I know, right now the coastal areas are experiencing a significant decline in real estate. California, is going through something pretty bad. You have the East Coast as well. You're looking at some negative trends. The four markets that are right now potentially experiencing the worst percentage declines are Boise, Idaho, Phoenix, Austin, and Nashville.
That's interesting because Phoenix and Nashville specifically, you typically see at the top of that list of places where real estate does well.
That's why. It's because fundamentally, houses must be within the grasp of the average consumer.
Right.
And what happens is they exceed those for a time being. So it's, we've heard for the last couple of years, even here locally in Dayton and Cincinnati, and for those that know me in Louisville and Lexington and Indianapolis, we've seen, we're continuing to see where prices are sometimes fetching higher than the asking price, right? And that sounds great. But fundamentally, the water will go to the level, the natural level. It has to. And so the index that I would look at if you're an investor is something called a price to earnings ratio. That's the index that you need to normalize, which means to get into a percentile perspective on if that home is affordable in your particular market.
Okay. So I'm not familiar with that. So where would somebody find that information?
Well, you'd have to buy it.
Okay. Well, that's fair enough.
So, or you have to analyze it and whatnot. You do see it and you do consume it in other ways. We know generally that Dayton is considered one of the more affordable markets. Okay, and so fundamentally, what a PDE, price to earnings ratio would be, just like it would be in the financial, industry, is what's the price of a home? What's the average median income for the area? That's how you come up with that index.
Gotcha.
Okay, and so outrageously expensive area, for example, if we look at Los Angeles, it's 11.2, which is very high.
So, just so I'm aware, as I'm looking at this, is it like golf where lower numbers mean higher and higher numbers mean?
Well, the lower the number, the better off it's going to be.
Okay.
Okay, so that means it would take 11.2 years for the average median income borrower to pay for a house, if that's all they did on raw dollars.
Gotcha.
So I believe, now it's still considered high if it's over 5 to 1.
Really?
Yeah, so meaning that it will impact buying or consumers' behaviors. And we're hitting that.
Yeah.
And so, we're seeing that, and that's a more national issue. It's not exclusive to Dayton or anything
Sure.
like that.
Out of curiosity, where does Dayton sit on that ratio?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask me that. Unfortunately, I don't have that number. I did look. I do know our affordability index, which
Okay.
is 262.8,
Okay.
which has, if you've seen here, I've got a chart here, that went up until 2020, and it's kind of stable out. Now, that's excellent because if you really look at like Cincinnati went down to 230. Cleveland 259, and Louisville went to 208. So in this case, the higher the better.
Gotcha.
Okay, and so Dayton is still considered a good buy if you look locally.
Yeah.
However, when you're looking at if something's a good buy or not, there are often reasons for that. And so, causation does not mean that it's necessarily correlated.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I can see that we've kind of hit the limit of our time for today, and yet I think the conversation that we've had has been really valuable. So I would love to continue this conversation in the future because I know we have more to unpack. Fred, what's the best way to get a hold of you if someone was interested?
Well, if you're interested in talking to me about anything, I'm a professor of analytics as well as doing the mortgage business. You can give me a call. My telephone number is 513-445-9811. If you're in Louisville, you can call me at 502-345-0682. Or you can call Tyler. Tyler knows how to get a hold of me.
That's right. And I get a hold of you often, don't I? Sometimes for much longer than this period of time. Well, again, thank you all for watching today. This has been Real Value with Tyler Blott. If you like what you saw today, please like, comment, and subscribe. It helps the algorithm, which helps boost this kind of content. And we'll see you next time.